Good evening. It's 6:33. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this meeting of Saugeen Shores Council for Monday, November 10th, 2025. And just as we get started, and seeing as tomorrow is Remembrance Day, I first wanted to acknowledge, of course, that there are many, many veterans in our community, and many, many folks served in all branches of the armed forces from our community throughout the world wars and subsequent wars. They served our country with distinction and with honor, and we're proud of them and thank them for their service. And well, with all of that in mind, I think we should observe a moment of silence. We should stand and observe a moment of silence for all of those folks now. Thank you very much. So the second item on our agenda is the land acknowledgement, and the Deputy Mayor has that this evening.
Thank you. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you very much. Third item is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing, Councillor Stack.
I think just on the Bruce C update, I don't know if I have to fill out the form, right? I can't, it's been a while.
And the nature of your pecuniary interest, please.
Bruce Powers, my employer.
Thank you. Any further declarations? If not, of course, you can declare one anytime if you need to. No additions, deletions, or amendments. So we're on to the minutes and the regular council minutes of October 20th, 2025 and October 27, 2025. The resolution is that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 20, 2025 and October 27, 2025 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. Questions or comments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. All right, so then we're on to, pardon me. Oh, sorry, yeah. I have to keep an eye on Bud there. Give me a sec. Anyway, so then we're on to 8.1, the delegations and delegation from the Municipal Heritage Committee on their 2026 budget, and that will be presented by the chair of the committee, Councillor Cheryl Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Municipal Heritage Committee. At our October 15th meeting, we met and discussed our proposed 2026 budget, and this is what you have before us. What we wish to recommend for our proposed budget for this year is a 50% subsidy for up to 6 property plaques. The plaques are the ones that go on usually homes, but can be other properties. Property owners apply to have the age of their property researched, including the owner and the owner's profession. And then if they meet the property plaque policy, then the town produces or arranges for a property plaque to be produced and provided to the owner. The owner pays for 50% of the cost. Interpretive plaques, these are the plaques that you see around town. Every year we do 2. This past year we did one to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Saugeen Shores, and the other one was on Sparks, the history of Sparks Corner. So we'd like to continue with that program, and the graphic design and creation costs $4,500 for 2 of those plaques. The committee members do the research for the content. We have a very active promotional committee. And so we are asking for $1,200 for heritage promotion materials for public events like the Marine Heritage Festival and Pumpkin Fest. This year we had 1 delegate go to the Ontario Heritage Conference, and the person came back with a great report with useful information that the committee can use. So this year we're actually asking for double that amount of $4,000 instead of $2,000. Veterans Heritage Banners, these are the banners that you see around town. That's a program that's been in place for some time now. And the $450 covers repairs and updates. And then we have a built-in inflationary amount of $139. One point that I want to mention that is a little different from what's in the budget materials is that the committee is not asking for a summer student this year. So the total amount we are asking for is $10,967.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And I will advise Council that this budget as presented by the committee was added to the draft budget by my direction earlier today. Are there any questions or comments for the councillor with respect to this delegation? Seeing none, of course, we'll get to discuss this all over again in a couple of days. So thank you for that, Councillor Grace. And with that, we'll move on to reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first report there is on the Bruce C Project Municipal MOU. And Alex Thompson's got that presentation for us. Alex.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Today, I'm here to provide a report to council recommending an endorsement of the Bruce C Nuclear Project Municipal Memorandum of Understanding. This Memorandum of Understanding outlines the framework for cooperation between the town of Saugeen Shores, the municipality of Kincardine, and the county of Bruce to support the municipal participation in the federal integrated impact assessment for the Bruce C Nuclear Project. Assuming all parties sign on to the MOU, the county will initiate a regional municipal working group, which will include engaging other municipalities within Bruce County to provide input into the development of regional data and to increase the understanding of project impacts. Town staff will continue to advance conversations with the Bruce Power on capacity funding and community benefit agreements, which will be ongoing throughout the impact assessment progress. With that, I'm very happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much. So there is a recommendation that council endorse the Bruce C Nuclear Project Municipal Memorandum of Understanding between the town of Saugeen Shores, municipality of Kincardine, and the county of Bruce. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by Councillor Mayette. Seconder. Councillor Davinsky. Questions or comments from members? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read through the materials, and I was pleased to see that our municipality and all of the partners in the program, proposed partners, have solid voices in the assessment process, and that we have the ability to participate in anticipating our community's future needs as a result of the project. And I'm pleased to see that the design of the MOU allows for us to conduct our own independent studies and may conduct peer reviews of studies led by Bruce Power, as well as the fact that the memo will be reviewed annually and at major stages of the process, and that mayors and councils may have a role in the decision-making process if parties are not able to reach a consensus on the terms. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question, Alex. If at some point during the process, the impact assessment shows risks within environmental, socioeconomic, and health impacts of the project that are significant and deemed unlikely to be able to be mitigated, how would this affect the terms of this MOU from our perspective? And I'm thinking particularly of the point that one of the components is that the participants advocate for funding and investment to be coordinated when engaging other levels of government.
Alex?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the intention of the MOU is to kind of provide cooperative goals for advocacy efforts for the 3 municipalities to both the provincial and federal government, Bruce Power, and other stakeholders. At this time, we're still identifying the impacts of this project that it will have upon our municipalities. And through that, we'll then be able to kind of determine what levels of, I guess you could say, support we would have. But really the intention of the MOU is kind of to determine how and which we would want to advocate collectively to these other levels of government.
Councillor Halpin? Nope, you're on mute there, bud.
I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you, and through you, Mayor. Alex, this is this all is being funded by Bruce Power. Is that correct?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's no direct funding allocation to the MOU itself. Bruce Power has provided capacity funding with the municipality of Saugeen Shores, for basically providing us the ability to, for my particular position, and that includes as well for the municipality of Kincardine and the county of Bruce, basically allowing us to participate in the impact assessment process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Mayette?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just a point of clarification, when it comes to assessing and mitigating impacts, the impacts that we're talking about are those that are directly related to municipal affairs, things like roads and housing and wastewater and those types of things, not the broader sense of the impact as is being assessed by those other government agencies, i.e. the CNSC or the Environment Commission and things like that. So it's just impacts that are related to our operations and how the project is going to impact us, right?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the federal impact assessment process actually includes both. It does include all of those things that you mentioned, but it does get to the granular level of how that's going to impact the greater public, and that includes what you can kind of call host communities. So it does get to the level of what are going to be the impacts upon the infrastructure and services that would be provided by municipalities such as ours.
Further questions or comments? I would note a couple of things, I guess. First, when this was discussed at the County of Bruce the other day, there was a resolution passed by council there seeking to change this agreement in what I would say would be a pretty minor and also a way that would, in my view, be acceptable. But I should let council know that under cooperation principles on page 2, equity and inclusion, the final sentence of that paragraph reads in this version, no party shall advocate for meeting their needs at the expense of another. So of course, the parties to this agreement are the County of Bruce, the Town of Saugeen Shores, and the municipality of Kincardine. As you can imagine, at Bruce County, there was some concern from other lower tier municipalities within the county that they weren't considered in that. So there was some language suggested that will be suggested by the Council of the County of Bruce that that line would remain, but also there would be an addition to the effect that that would include all of the lower tiers in the county of Bruce. So no party would advocate for meeting their needs at the expense of anybody else in this agreement or any other municipality in Bruce County. So I can't imagine there's any objection to that here. That's the version that will likely be suggested ultimately by Bruce County. The other thing I would just note is one of the, I think, positives. There's a lot of positives comes out of this agreement. It really sets the stage and gives us a platform to work with and cooperate with both Bruce County and Kincardine. We are the most impacted communities as identified by Bruce Power and itself through the impact assessment process. So we need to coordinate with each other, make sure we're working well together, make sure as this process proceeds that we're not duplicating each other or stepping on each other or working at cross purposes. I think everyone I think agrees that there's a great deal of potential benefit in a new build at the Bruce site, but there's an awful lot of work to do to get to realizing that benefit. We want to achieve it. We want it to happen in the best possible way for our communities, for the environment, for our local Indigenous communities, for our economy. And in order to make sure that happens, we need to work well together with our partners. So this enables us to do that. The other thing it does is sets out an understanding that no party, none of these three parties, will negotiate an ultimate hosting agreement on behalf of any of the other parties. So you may recall that years and years and years ago, when there was a low and intermediate level DGR proposed in Kincardine, there was a hosting agreement signed by Kincardine at that time, and the municipality of Kincardine negotiated that directly with the proponent, and there was funding made available through that agreement that came to Saugeen Shores, but we didn't have any part in negotiating it. So there's a good understanding and I think a good agreement between all the parties that when it comes to our own interests, when it comes to our own needs, we should be negotiating or have our own hosting agreement to cover those costs or to make sure our interests are protected. And Kincardine should have that for them, and Bruce County should have that for them. And if there are agreements that are needed in Huron-Kinloss or Erin Elderslie or anywhere else, everyone should represent themselves and their own interests. So this sets that out in writing, and I hope that it will ensure that Saugeen Shores, which is a major we are majorly impacted by the Bruce, that we're able through this process to work with our partners and uphold our own interests. So anyway, all that said, I think it's a good agreement and sets us up well to work positively with Kincardine and the Bruce County to make sure we're doing everything we can to see new build done right in our region. All right, so you've heard the resolution. If there's nothing further from the Deputy Mayor. Mm-hmm.
So how do we make sure then that the comment that you specifically made about the county, including a slight change in the language, do we need to say this has amended?
I think, well, we could. That would simplify the matter. I guess if council doesn't object to that amendment, then we could, if we approved it, then it wouldn't have to come back to us with new language. So we could, if you wanted to propose that change, that under equity and inclusion, that language to the effect that we would not advocate for, none of the parties would advocate for meeting their needs at the expense of another or any other community in Bruce County. Then otherwise, if we don't make that change, it's going to come back and we'll have to sort of approve that again. So I don't know, would you like to make that amendment?
I would move that.
All right, so the Deputy Mayor would move that amendment and seconded by Councillor Grace. So if there's any discussion on the amendment, I'll ask all in favor of that amendment. That's carried. All right, so now we're back to the main question as amended. Any further? Councillor Mayat.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mayor, through you. Just as you explained how this was kind of put together, was it considered that Bruce Power or the proponent would be also a signatory to this memorandum? Because I can see that this will result in some sort of a regular, whether it's quarterly or biannually, some sort of forum that you're going to get together with the three parties and the proponent to discuss mitigating efforts for all of the impacts as they arise and things like that. So it should not be a quadpartite agreement, perhaps? Was that considered?
No, I think this was very much about coming to an understanding between the municipalities as a group with common interests, right? So the Bruce Power has a very different set of interests, right? They're the proponent. So we need to work with them unquestionably, and we need to have a good relationship with them, which we do, and we talk to them all the time. But this is really intended to bring the municipal parties together as a group with very similar interests to ensure that we're, again, working well together and also staying in our appropriate lanes and working with each other as well. But I think that, well, maybe, I don't know if Alex or the CAO can speak to how we're working with Bruce Power, separate from this agreement. That would be a good thing to talk about, the CAO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, we have ongoing meetings with Bruce Power, as was asked earlier. For example, we have our own funding agreement that funds the position within the organization, and we're currently working or negotiating on what funding would look like in order to allow us to participate in some of the study work. So those are conversations that each municipality is advancing on their own with Bruce Power. But outside of that, we do have the CAO group and the leads from each municipality meet monthly with Bruce Power. And then Alex, as our coordinator, and his counterparts also meet, I think, almost weekly, yeah, with Bruce Power's Bruce C team in order to keep engaged on that project. So there's a lot of meetings going on, but to answer your question and to reiterate a bit of what the mayor said, this was really more so about what the municipalities will agree to amongst themselves and how we'll approach those negotiations with Bruce Power, appreciating we're all going to do it individually.
Okay, is there anything else? If not, then all in favor? That is carried. Okay, so now let's bring Councillor Stack back. She was listening. All right, so now we're on to 9.2, the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification and the Director of Community Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. A division highlight in the 2025 business plan for the Community Services Department is the investigation of the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification. So Rick Hansen, who led the Man in Motion World Tour, established a foundation in the late 80s focusing on creating awareness of accessibility, changing the attitudes, and research and care for those with spinal cord injury. The foundation does incredible work to break down physical barriers that people with disabilities face. The certification program is a rating system that private or municipal facility owners can utilize when reviewing accessibility for existing buildings or new designs prior to construction. There are 2 levels of certification, gold and certified, and the criteria is outlined in Appendix A for Council's awareness. The report outlines the steps to obtain certification and related costs in Appendix B. This includes but not limited to creating an account, registering the site or sites, rating survey, adjudication fee, decals, and annual fee. The estimated total for one facility is $6,400. This does not include the cost for a rating survey, and that cost was not available at the time of preparing this report, and it does not include any construction or renovations required to meet requirements of the certification. So we're very fortunate that the work of organizations like the Rick Hansen Foundation have brought awareness to accessibility needs, the removal of barriers, and the accessibility for Ontario's disability AODA in 2005, and these have helped to influence the current 2015 Ontario Building Code amendments with significantly enhanced accessibility requirements for new construction and renovation. So the town has an active accessibility advisory committee. Links to the committee's mandate and accessibility plan is in the report for council awareness. The areas of focus in the upcoming term are to provide resources for those who want to improve accessibility in homes and to complete tours of existing municipal assets to identify any opportunities for improving accessibility in facilities, parks, and open spaces. So while the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification Program is an excellent program and it provides great resources, the recommendation at this time is that the town does not invest financially with the certification program and continues to work with the town's Accessibility Advisory Committee. For new construction like the Pride Aquatic and Wellness Center, the design team included a Rick Hansen certified architect and ensured that elements included in the design were in line with the criteria outlined in the certification program. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So there is a recommendation that council receive the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification Report for information. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. Questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to commend our Director of Community Services for the recommendation that she's making. She's noted that the accessibility tool provided by the Rick Hansen Foundation is being made available to municipalities, and I'm sure Shai's knowing you and your capabilities and your staff's capabilities that we'll follow a lot of those recommendations with that municipal accessibility toolkit. And I remember back in, I think it was 2005, you recall this in council of the day, we talked about the blue flag program, and we decided not to do that. And I think Mayor Sherwin was on council at that time. And we surpassed, without having to pay the fee to the blue flag program, we surpassed all of those recommendations that was contained within that program. So I know with the Ontario Building Code and the Accessibility Advisory Committee and staff and all the things in the accessibility toolkit provided by the Rick Hansen Foundation, I think it's plenty. So good for you. I think it's $6,000 we don't need to spend because we're good at doing what we're doing with making our buildings accessible, and we'll continue to do that. So I think your recommendation is spot on.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just on a side note, in regards to the Southampton BIA meeting, it looks like there could be some renewed interest in the stopgap program, the little ramps that they make for stores and stuff like that. So I think our community is working in the right direction on this and will continue to do so. So I agree with the recommendations.
Thank you. Further comments, questions from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, since there's a chunk of the report here that relates to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, I just wanted to comment that we have space on that committee for a couple more members of the public. So we'll be in December coming up with a plan, a little recruitment plan. There's a couple of items in here that kind of take me by surprise as chair of that committee. So I'll go back and revisit some of what our work plan is all about. But I did want to say that the idea that we're conducting facility tours, our first one is set up for December of the new Aquatics and Wellness Center. So there's a real excitement about that. And we've also had some opportunity to speak with Adam about accessible equipment in accessible picnic tables in parks. And so hopefully there'll be a little bit more opportunity for more of them, but also more awareness of what they're for and why they're where they're at and that sort of thing. But I'm glad to see that we got a whole paragraph in the report. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? I will say it is apparent that the municipality is learning a lot about accessibility and doing a lot to implement accessibility. I was just in the Aquatic and Wellness Center on a tour not very long ago, and one thing that really stands out in there is that ramp that goes all the way into that great big pool, it stretches right from the deep end all the way to the shallow end to get you so that you can get in. It is a massive ramp, but anybody, and I'll be using the ramp. After I do the cannonball, I'll be using the ramp, because it's the best way to get into the pool. But anybody can get into that pool, and you don't need special equipment. It's built right into the tank. So, like, just one example of and that's expensive. That's an expensive addition to that pool, but it's worth it. It's worth every penny, and we're willing to spend the money because it's important for that facility to be as accessible as possible. And the reason we're doing those things is because we have really smart people, both on our committee and in our staff, in our building department, who are paying attention to accessibility and making sure that we're doing these things. And we have the folks, we have the expertise. We're doing the work, and we're making the community more accessible every day. Are we done? Is it perfect? Absolutely not. There's a heck of a lot more important work to do, but we got the people and the know-how to get it done, and we're willing to spend the money. So So I don't think, I'm just, all of that to say, I agree with the recommendation. I think we got what we need. So if there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so we're on to 9.3, a striking committee report, and we'll turn that over to the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a brief overview of the recommendation from the striking committee to council to make a few housekeeping updates to the procedural bylaw. The procedural bylaw 87/2024 was adopted in late 2024. And in front of you tonight are 7 changes to that, which is a good rule of business to look at a year out what's working and what maybe needs some adjustment. So the first one in front of you tonight is section 8.1, which recognizes quasi-judicial committees and just recognizes that those committees are typically function under a provincial legislative framework and therefore do not need to necessarily follow the standard agenda format. And this will give a little bit more freedom for that structure to happen and play out in real time in those committee agendas. The second one is with regards to 8.1 as well, under order of business. And this is looking at moving the closed to public session in front of the consent agenda on the agenda structure. 8.2 is a recommendation that will provide additional clarity when items are added to the agenda, that they're subject to not just the timing, but also the provisions of the bylaw in order to be added. The next one is section 14.7B, which is that with regard to the Planning Act, if a matter is before the Planning Act, that no delegation can be made on that matter through a council agenda. Section 14.7B further is that there are additional restrictions that are added that when a matter is before that other board or being dealt with by another body, or there's a threat of litigation, that a delegation cannot be made on that as well. Section 14.10.9 is to provide greater clarity to council staff and the public on the basis for open forum requests or delegation requests and when they're able to be refused by the clerk. So again, a little bit more clarity added. And lastly, section 28.9, it was recommended for removal as it added a bit of confusion to section 28. So section 28.1 through 28.8 still stand, but the section 28.9 has been removed as it was deemed unnecessary. So again, those were the elements that were reviewed by the striking committee and are being recommended to council for approval.
Thank you. So there is a recommendation from the striking committee that council approve a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw as presented. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Councillor Grace and Councillor Duhaime, questions or comments? Councillor Stack.
So, sorry, I have too many computers. So I just had some concerns with some of the language. I don't think this, I've made these comments similarly when we did the last revision back in 2024. So I'll just kind of go through them. And then, sorry, I read this later on this afternoon. So I think on Romanet IX, I'm just wondering, this kind of commentary, it looks like it was relatively sufficiently addressed already when we talk about litigation. So I think it would be more appropriate to expand the restrictions when it comes to matters for litigation rather than including a new insertion. I think Romanet X, specifically with respect to jurisdiction of the ombudsman, my concern is this seems like the language as drafted is overly broad. And I think this is a theme I sort of see through it. I'm just concerned we're providing too wide of a berth to reject open forum requests. And when I look at this, we know specifically what requests we generally have some concerns with. So I'm just afraid this is too broad, too open, and we're going to restrict people that we may not, you know, maybe I should rephrase this. I don't want the risk of the perception to be that we're restricting a specific subset of people who have come before us with specific sets of concerns. And when I look at this, I'm just really concerned. We're saying, if we don't like your tone, we don't like what you're talking about, you're going to get rejected. I think if we're going to put these revisions in here, they need to be way tighter. Like, I can't in good conscience accept that some of this language, like for instance, in Romanet XI, you know, you can't talk about anyone, you can't really raise an issue related to anyone. Like, if you want to come up here and talk about the behaviors of an MP or an MPP or the decisions of a counselor, you should be able to do so. I understand the concept of decorum, but frankly, I come up here and take many opportunities to criticize specific members of the Ford government. I take great pride in being able to do so, and I'm just concerned that the way that language is written, we're telling people in our community that we're not going to accept you coming to open forum if we don't like what you're saying, if we're concerned that a negative inference could be interpreted. I think Romanet XII is too broad. I think there's too much that could be subject to municipal process. And same with XIV. I just think overall, these are too broad. Like when I look at this, I'm concerned that and I understand you're probably going to tell me that other municipalities do this. I don't care. I think we need to be really careful when we're trying to restrict freedom of expression in this chamber. I understand that there is conduct that's not becoming of people and is not acceptable. Then we deal with it at the time. Frankly, maybe we don't love it, but people should be able to come up to that podium and complain to us. We're elected officials. Like, I'm sorry, I don't accept that people have to be unduly restricted when they come up in front of us. And if they yell and scream, as long as they're not swearing or saying anything wholly inappropriate, I mean, they already have to submit their materials. And I've had issues with some of the rejections, some of our decisions with respect to rejections of open forum before. So I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I take real issue with what I see as some pretty material restrictions.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, just as a follow-up, and perhaps Councillor Stack can help me understand how this might work. I believe that section 14.7 is specific to open forum and delegations, or just one or the other? Both? Okay. The intention of open forum is we just listen. So that's one thing. With delegations, generally, we're just receiving information and we don't encourage dialogue back and forth. So would just appreciate a comment from Councillor Stack. If someone was at the podium and they were saying things that could be considered defamation, slanderous libel, or otherwise, how do you think we could address that in the moment? And I guess I'm interested in the way your legal brain processes information, because that to me would be a danger of enabling somebody to make that sort of representation when the intent of those two items is, generally speaking, just to receive information. It's not necessarily about a dialogue back and forth. So there's no response mechanism embedded in the way that they're happening. I'm just curious how you think we could react to that.
Councillor Stack.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not saying we can't have reasonable restrictions. I think my concern is who's the adjudicator of what's libelous, like what's slander, what's defamation, right? Like, I think that's where my concern is. And some of these restrictions, like I can pull up the language. I think I don't know the basis upon, I got it. So, you know, allegations that may be considered defamation, slanderous, libel, otherwise put into question. So this is the issue that I have. Put into question the personal and professional integrity of a person, including a capital M member, so that's us, a member of the municipal administration. I have a lot of tolerance for that. Like, I don't think employees should be subjected to the same sort of level of criticism that perhaps municipal councilors should be. Any member of the public present at the meeting or not. So I think where our real issue is, like, they should be able to come up here and say, Councillor Stack, I think your decision was shit. They should be able to say that, right? Like, I don't have an issue with that. And maybe that's me and that's fine, but I want people to be able to come up here and say, now, if they say, I think your decision was bad and X, Y, and Z, you're a terrible person and punch dogs. Okay, like, fine, we can have a conversation and we can deal with those in the moment. But I'm just concerned that we are saying, hey, I don't like what this reads to me, and I know it might not be the intention. I don't like to be criticized, so I don't want people to come up here on the podium and say something that I don't like. And is that, and maybe we're okay with that, but is that what we want constituents thinking, that we're not comfortable taking criticism? And like, that's my position. I mean, no one else has to agree with me here, but like, when I read this, like, information or material submitted, if spoken aloud in a meeting, would be considered a breach of decorum. Like, I'd like to understand what that means, because decorum's a fairly loose concept in the bylaw. I'm sure there's a definition somewhere, fine. Like, I'm just concerned that we're dealing with one specific, what I look like is we've had some particular challenges on one set of issues. And so we're saying we need to revise this to more narrowly define what people can come up here and say. I think the majority of people come up here and it's fairly respectful. But I think we should be really thoughtful in terms of what we're deciding to do when it comes to restricting people's rights to come up here.
Yeah, Councillor Grace, and then Halpin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. For instance, for 14.7B11, and just in my experience, in hearing a number of delegations in open forum and otherwise, I don't think that people have been precluded from criticizing the decisions of either individual council members or council as a whole. Now, maybe we should be including definitions of what defamation and slander. Actually, libel is spelled incorrectly in this. It should be libel. And, for instance, we should say, that it's damaging, it's proven false, or it's false information and it's damaging. In my experience, members of the public have not been restricted from criticizing our decisions, or either individually or as an institution. So I'm comfortable with this, although if it would help members of the public and us to include, and our staff, to include guidelines or definitions on what defamation, slander, libel, etc. are, then maybe we should add something like that.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'm liking some of the comments from Councillor Stack on this. And I think that we have to be careful that as council, sometimes I think we need to suffer fools. And sometimes we make rules just for a couple of situations that have happened, or for a few people. We make a broad set of rules for that. And I think we have to be, make people feel comfortable making those delegations and making people feel welcome to make those delegations. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Councillor Dinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in listening to the discussions, I too must side with Councillor Stack on this. In my other life, doing editorials and doing a talk show, I was constantly ridiculed or said I was an idiot because of something that I had said and so on. And you know what? Maybe I was. But it comes with the territory. And I sometimes think that this council is a little too tight when it comes to what you can say and what you can't say at the podium. And I've thought that for quite some time. And until I heard Councillor Stack put it in the words she put it in, I thought, my goodness, that's how I feel as well. We talk about, well, we have to deal with slander and this, that, and the other thing, all of which are personal. Slander to me may not be slander to you. And we'll have to deal with that. But I think we've got to give the people the opportunity to say, you're doing it wrong. You don't know what the heck you're talking about. And I'm not going to vote for you in the next election. Well, right, fine. I can live with that. You know, I think there's more than meets the eye here. And right now, I'm leaning with Councillor Halpin and Councillor Stack. Thank you.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a number of items in what's before us that are right on. I think there is an opportunity, I think, to revisit the language and make sure that the intent or not intent is clear, and perhaps to, you know, include a few more definitions. So would it be appropriate to recommend a deferral and send this back to the striking committee for another look? And because there's a lot of good in here, and if we're just focusing on a couple of things, I think we could take another look at it and, you know, deal with some definitions, and also make sure that it is inclusive and not intended to exclude people. But there is an element of and I can respect very much the role that we've all taken on, where we're subject to all kinds of comments. However, this word decorum and a little bit of protection for our positions, I think, is relevant as well, because the public sometimes needs to be reminded that even though we are members of public, and so maybe the standard is a little bit higher for us, there still is a standard. So would it be appropriate to just, rather than vote, refer it back to striking, taking into account the comments of a number of members today, and see what we can do with a number of the items to make them a little more clear, or maybe to have them not be there at all?
It seems that the primary concern expressed is with the items in section 14.7. Council could pass the rest of the amendments and refer the suggested amendments in 14.7 to the striking committee. I don't know if that's the Deputy Mayor.
I think, though, that even though the comments were specific to 14.7, I do think that some of what was said related to 14.10.9, which is about the basis of refusal of a delegation, I think that was mentioned in there as well.
Well, that's fair enough. If you want to make a motion to refer the whole thing back to the committee, you can do that too, whatever you like.
And if I'm correct, the striking committee has a meeting in December.
Boy, that's a long time from now. I don't know. But
Well, I would make that motion that we refer this back to the striking committee for additional consideration.
okay, is there a seconder for the motion to refer? Councillor Grace seconds. I just would just comment as this heads back to the striking committee that you know, there's no language in here that restricts anybody from complaining about council or criticizing council or telling council as a body or as an individual that we're wrong. But there is language in here about defamation, slander, and libel, and honestly, those terms aren't all that confusing to me. I know what they mean, and they're not good things. So, and on the other items around things before the integrity commissioner, things before the ombudsman, closed meeting investigator, those are formal processes, and they really should not be brought before council. Items that are before the IC or the ombudsman, because there's a proper process from that, and there's a point at which that report comes to council where we get to decide on it, but we shouldn't be discussing it in process. That would be procedurally wrong, and so I think that's an important amendment. Threatened litigation, you know, we shouldn't be discussing things that are going to become litigated, because that creates liability for the municipality. So I think, but you know, we can review defamation, slander, libel, and perhaps look at some definitions. But you know, it's clear to me that those are bad things, and that doesn't mean criticism. Defaming somebody doesn't mean criticizing them. It means defaming them. Those two words aren't the same, slander, libel. That's not the same thing. So, and I do think this is a forum for the public, but it has rules. And those rules apply to everyone in the room, including council, staff, and members of the public. It isn't a place where you can just say whatever you want. It's a place where you have to speak in accordance with the rules. And those rules elevate the dialogue in here. They're intended to elevate the dialogue to make sure that it is about the issue at hand, about the business of the municipality, and not about calling somebody a bad name or slandering them in some way. Like, I think there's a line there. It's pretty clear to me. And we need to elevate. This should be a space in which debate is had at an elevated level. People can be defamatory out in public if they want, and they can say whatever they want in any other forum. And it's not fine, but it's their right. But in here, there's rules, and our dialogue and our conversation is constrained to a set of rules to make it a place where we do good business, the people's business, and we do it in a way that doesn't defame or slander or libel anyone. And it's not about us, it's about anybody in the community, anybody on our staff, anybody. And in that context, we're really just members of the community. So that's, anyway, I just wanted to say that as it goes back to the committee, that those are my views, but certainly open to looking at revisions. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
I haven't spoke yet, so I was fine with the way it was written, but in my 11 years on council, I've been criticized and written to and sworn at, nasty letters. I mean, I can take some of that criticism. I have no issue with that. It's when they start defaming my character and slandering and the finger up, walking out of a room, and those kinds of things, harassment, those are the kinds of things that are wrong. I don't mind criticism. I get criticized a lot. I'll continue to be criticized. I have no problem with that. But when they're defaming your character, writing you nasty letters and being slanderous and harassing, that is wrong. So if we need to send it back to striking committee, fair enough. I don't mind doing that and providing some explanations, some definitions of what those things mean. But I, for one, don't want to shut down discussion at a podium. People have every right to speak. I enjoy people coming up to open forum and delegations, but don't be slanderous. I could produce letters that I've gotten that are not pretty to read. So I was going to support this as is, but I have no problem with going back to committee, I suppose. And if you want definitions, we'll put definitions in. Definitely don't want to shut down communication between the podium and this council. Don't want to do that. And I'll take criticism. 11 years I've taken criticism. That's part of the territory when you become an elected official. But my God, sometimes it just really crosses the line.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I remember when we just did the urban tree bylaw, Mr. Pauly said that, bylaws by nature seem to be kind of a little strict or a little bossy or whatever. It's just the nature of bylaws. And I think, Mayor, that if we had a little preamble to it that you described in your statement, I think that would make people feel welcome and understanding of what we're doing. So, maybe this bylaw just needs a little preamble, and that would be it, because there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it that I think is wrong or shouldn't be in there. It's just a little bit of a preamble like that may help us balance off and, the strictness of the nature of bylaws. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate the comments from Councillor Stack, Councillor Davinsky, and yourself, and I think, and I understand the desire to be as open as we can be and to make sure that we're striking that balance right. And obviously, we don't have it quite right because there's a lot of concern. So we'll take it back and we'll try to get it more right in a way that you folks can be comfortable with too. I really would prefer the procedural bylaw to pass, these amendments to pass unanimously to get them in a position where everybody could accept them. That makes them more enforceable for me and less concern from members of council as we try to enforce them. So we should get them right, and your committee will consider them and try to do that. Councillor Stack.
Yeah, thanks. I just feel given some of the discussion, it's important to just sort of maybe narrowly define my issue. It's like, so I, used to say this to my stepdaughter all the time, like precision in language matters. And so like my concern here is that we can be more precise. I get concerned when I understand that, like, I don't think anyone's going to argue the concepts of defamation, slander, libel, like that's fine. But, puts into question personal or professional integrity, for example. Like I have issues with that because I don't really know what that means. And people's definition of integrity can be pretty broad. And so I just think we can be more narrow. I just feel like we're still a little circumspect here in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So what I'm asking for is just a tighter definition, a little less broad, so that when we make a decision to decline someone's request, we can stand behind it and say there's a pretty limited set of criteria that we've used to define when someone can or cannot present on council.
Yeah, and those comments are well made and understood. So we'll take them back, and we'll try to get it right next time. So are there any further questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the referral? That is carried. All right. Thank you all. So now we're on to the consent agenda. Anybody want to vote on any of the items in the consent agenda separately from the rest of the consent agenda? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure whether it's appropriate to vote, but I did want to advocate for us supporting the Blue Water Resolution in the communications. That would be the sixth item under communications.
Yeah, so our practice has been that when it comes to communications, we can just leave it in the consent agenda. When we reach communications, you make the motion and we'll just approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Anybody want to vote on any of the other items on its own? Councillor Stack.
Yeah, can we just separate out 10.1? I'm just on the consent agenda, the Bruce C project update.
Yes, okay, so there's a request to vote separately on item 10.1, which we will do. Anything else in that regard? Okay, so what we're going to do then, I'll just consider all the other ones first, then we'll come back to 10.1. So let's have a resolution then that items 10.2 through 10.7 be approved and received for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Councillor Stack, Councillor Mayette. All right, so I'm just going to make my way through them and you guys stop me if you want to speak to any of them. 10.2, IT acceptable use policy update. Questions, comments from members? I don't see any. So 10.3, development charges, treasurer's statements. Questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor? Elton?
Thank you. It's really great to see this report. I know we're catching up with some financial information. This will have a chance to be more broadly debated when we get to a development charges update, right? So that's expected in the first quarter of next year.
The treasurer? Your mic's on.
Thank you. That's correct. It will be brought to council in late first quarter, early second quarter, well in advance of the actual DC bylaw being updated.
And has a follow-up question / request. I know that there's some changeover happening with the website, but I tried to go back and find the development charges conversations or information about how items were sort of added as eligible in the last study. Is it possible just for somebody to give us even if it's just a date, because it's very hard to search for old information on the website until we get everything over to a new site. The reason why I ask that is that some of the reserves that are sitting there have funds in them that were supposed to be for something. So it's interesting to me anyway to know 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever that study happened, what was felt was somewhat significant to include. And, in some cases, we haven't done that yet. Is it something that, maybe we should be thinking about doing, or is it just, that the predictive powers of whoever back then, reality, showed a different path. So I just would appreciate if there's any way to give us a reference point to the past, so that we can match up some information with this summary.
We can ensure that the 2021 background study is available on the website. And in terms of the process going forward, it is one of the starting points for the new background study, as well as to look at the previous one as for data points.
Okay, Councillor Halpin.
My question has been answered, but it's nice to have these good reserves, and thank you very much for the report. And I look forward to the next go around with the DC charges. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on 10.3? Don't see any interest in that. So 10.4, heritage property demolition request at 18 Huron Street North. Anything from the members on that? Don't see anything. All right. So then we're on to 10.5, the Pride AWC debenture number 2. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your report. Daniel, see you're here tonight, and I was just wondering, the 4.75% third-year loan, I have two questions. Do you consider that to be a competitive rate for a 30-year loan, and who did you negotiate that with? And secondly, the first debenture, 14,166, what was that rate? What was that 30-year loan rate at?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The first loan for the 14 million was at a rate of 4.73%. I do consider the rates in that range to be excellent 30-year rates. Specifically, they're excellent 30-year rates because these types of loans don't exist for other entities. The ability to get a locked-in guarantee rate on a 30-year loan is provided through Infrastructure Ontario, and there's no other commercial bank or organization that would be able to provide that. 30-year rates tend not to fluctuate or swing as much as short-term rates. They're fairly steady, but I do think it's a good rate, and I look forward to receiving the final rate offer on Wednesday, and hope that may be a little bit lower than the 4.75% that's quoted in the report.
Okay, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and I'm glad the Vice Deputy Mayor asked that, because I had 40 years in my mind, so 30 is even better. So that was a good bit of information. I did want to ask, though, if it can just be a comment about the repayment of this loan is via the Legacy Reserve Fund, which there's an allocation included every year in the sort of general operating situation. So it's not a percentage of somebody's taxes, but there's a standard amount that is just included in taxes each year. Can you just, I'm sorry, I should have asked you in advance, but what is that figure each year that's built into the tax base or built into the process, which then is applied to ratepayers? What is that number that is related to the legacy reserve?
It's roughly $2.3 million that we transfer to the legacy reserve through the operating fund each year. And that goes towards paying for debt payments on Lamont Sports Park and the Aquatic Center. 2.4, sorry.
Okay. Anything further? See anything else on 10.5? So we'll look at 10.6, Smart Beach Program Update. Oh, sorry, Councillor Halpin, did you have something? Councillor Halpin. Oh, no, just still have your hand up? Okay. So 10.6, Smart Beach Program Update. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions about what the end goal is with all of this and the funding situation. I think, so I'll ask the questions and then perhaps a response can come. It talks about partnership funding, but there seems to be a grant involved here. Are we Are we contributing any dollar figure to this yet, or has the grant sort of covered off everything? And I'm a little bit confused about, it talks about municipal partners. Are we working with Kincardine still, or is this a totally separate thing with us and the University of Waterloo and Georgian College? I also just wondered what again is the end goal, because you know that it's mentioned a couple of times in the report, in the big report too, that there was a moderate, it's described as a moderate but meaningful demand for a beach safety app. But then it talks about how most people really, they make decisions to go to the beach the day of or the night before, and they're looking mostly at rain, temperature, wind speed, and cloud cover. So I'm just, you know, what are we hoping to get out of this? And are we actually contributing any money, or is the grant still got everything covered for now? And I'm just curious, who's actually involved? Is it just us with Georgian and Waterloo, or is Kincardine still in the mix here?
The Director of Community Services.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll try and hit all your questions. Let me know if I missed any. So there was a grant that was secured, and it was the College and Community Social Innovation Fund, and it was for $350,000. So that covers for the involvement of Saugeen Shores, the 3 phases that we're doing. So no additional cost to the municipality. So we are in partnership with University of Waterloo, Georgian College, and the town of Saugeen Shores. So we meet with them bi-weekly meetings. Our IT team is involved, our facility staff, our park staff, waterfront staff, and myself. The first year was the data collection, which is outlined in the report. What they did from the data collected from the Kincardine when they did it at for that municipality is to see if their data can be integrated with the data that's collected in Saugeen Shores. So I would say that that would be the extent of the involvement in Kincardine for this phase. Am I missing any of your questions?
What's the end goal here? Just set the goalposts.
Sorry about that. Yes, and through you. So phase 6 will be the launch of an application, a smart beach application. So the survey data that you referenced was the text receiving some background information on what folks look for when they decide to go to the beach, in particular enter the water as well. So weather definitely, but we want to look at, it's really a safety app as well, and to produce some type of warning systems, waves, currents, things like that, that will help people make smart decisions when along our waterfront and to enter the water.
Okay, Councillor Halpin. You're still on mute there, bud.
Okay, sorry. No, that's been answered. My question was that this is fully funded by a grant, and it is funded by a grant. It's going to take another year to roll out, and we'll just let it play out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks, Kristen. It was pretty interesting reading through all of the behavior of beachgoers and whatnot. I guess my question is, because I could see a real practical use for this, if we were able to insert specific Saugeen Shores information, I'm assuming we will be, with maps, beach entrances, where we have our rescue buoys or kits throughout the municipality and that kind of thing. Not just water conditions, but also posting as quickly as we can water quality readings and, you know, do not go in the water, that kind of thing. I'm assuming that when this is up and running, we'll be able to insert that on a regular basis and update that on a regular basis.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've just begun the conversations of integration of data. So for example, I did ask the question, when our beaches get shut down because of water sampling. Is that something? So it is under consideration and we're discussing it right now.
Okay, further questions on this one? I think it's a great project and, it's going to take a little while to get there, but I think it could, as Councillor Gray says, could have some real practical benefit. People want to see what we can see us do things to make the beaches safer. And so this is a thing that we can do. So it's looking forward to the results. All right, so we're moving on to 10.7, communications. There are 8 items of communication there. So I know Councillor Grace wanted to consider one. So Councillor Grace, maybe start us off.
Sure, thank you. Sorry, my things appears to be frozen here. I would like us to consider supporting the municipality Blue Water resolution, urging the federal government to keep climate change as a foremost national priority. We've seen the worsening effects of climate change in our town. Just look at our budget materials, and thank goodness our staff is keeping the effects of climate change and how we can implement policies and actions to mitigate those effects. It's something that's obviously a national and a global concern. The most recent hurricane in the Caribbean, yes, it's away from us, but I heard that this hurricane was past Category 5. We're at Category 6 hurricanes now, and that the experts indicate that this is climate change. So I know there are people who downplay its significance. I would like us to sign on and support this resolution and ask the federal government to do all it can to keep climate change as a foremost national priority.
So the councillor moves that council supports municipality of Blue Water resolution, keeping climate change as a foremost national priority. Is there a seconder? Councillor Stack, any discussion? If not, all in favor? That's carried. The Deputy Mayor?
I would like us to consider supporting item 5 on the list from Bradford West Gwillimbury. It's listed on the list as removing HST, GST from new homes to support affordable housing. It's more about the use of support affordable housing there is kind of confusing because this is about the building of housing, single family housing. And so it would put the construction of new detached homes in the same place with regard to HST, GST as some of the other categories that have been exempted, because I think there's a mix of housing that serves a purpose in any community. The idea is that people looking for their first home, this might provide a little more opportunity for affordability for them. But it is confusing the way that the headline is there because it's not about building affordable housing. It's about making the construction of single family houses perhaps a little bit more affordable. So I think it's worth supporting because the government has removed HST and GST from other types of builds. And if it's about encouraging building, this is another tool.
So the Deputy Mayor moves that council support the resolution from the municipality of, from the town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, removing HST and GST from new homes to support housing affordability. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Grace. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Any other items? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
It's the last item on the list, Mr. Mayor. I think it's Emerald Ash Borer. I think I've got the right number. Let me have a check here. A sec. I think that's the right one. Yes, it is. And that's just in support of the corporation of the Township of Stone Mills to deal with the ever rising costs of the emerald ash borer and not only removing them, terrific cost for municipalities, but also for reforestation to help with reforesting once those emerald ash trees are taken down. And I think any help that we can get as a municipality to support this initiative, I think would be a good thing. And if we can nudge the province and the feds along, I think that would be a good thing too. So I would like to move that.
So the Vice Deputy Mayor moves support for the resolution from the Township of Stone Mills advocating for funding to address emerald ash borer infestation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Davinsky, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unopposed, if any, that's carried. And so now we'll go to Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I was interested in 10.7 Plymouth, Wyoming on the freeze of conservation authorities, but with the conservation authorities in so much flux right now, with all the new things going on, this may just be lost in the news. So, if there'd be a seconder for that, we could urge them to do that, because the freeze on development freeze on fees and stuff like that has really put the cost of the revenue lost on that on all the members of the Conservation Authority. Like, if our rates have been frozen for 3 years that they can charge or more, and when other things go up and everything like that, the only option to retrieve that money is to charge member municipalities like us more. And if the freeze was off, then the people using the service would be funding it more than just out of the general coffers. So that'd be my reasons for supporting it if there is a seconder.
Sure. Well, the councillor moves support for the resolution from the town of Plimpton, Wyoming, with respect to conservation fee freezes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mayette. And I would just comment myself that, just to be real clear, that the freeze transfers the cost of development to the taxpayer is what it does, right? It takes a fee that should be paid for by a person benefiting from a development and transfers that cost to the property taxpayer. And so property taxpayers now have to subsidize private development. And to me, that seems like something that the Conservative government, it's strange for them to want to do that in terms of protecting taxpayers. But there you have it. It seems like, to me, I don't understand the policy. We should be protecting taxpayers and making sure that private things that are of private benefit are funded by private interests. So I agree. There's no reason these fees should be frozen. So if there's nothing further on that, all in favor? That's carried. Anything else? If not, then we'll move out of that. We have a resolution, and with respect to items 10.2 through 10.7. And that's been moved and seconded. So I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. So now we're going to consider item 10.1, for which the councillor has declared a pecuniary interest. So I'll read the resolution on that. And it is that council receive the Bruce C project update report for information. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Okay. So now we're finished with all items from the consent agenda, and we're on to motions and notices of motion. So for clarity for members, what is before you in motions and notices of motion is a motion to reconsider. A motion to reconsider does not require notice. It will be considered at the moment it is tabled. This motion has been tabled by Councillors Grace and Mayette. What will happen? I will read this resolution. Should it pass, it will have the effect of nullifying or erasing the decision that council made with respect to resolution 211-2025. In that event, we will immediately discuss that motion again, which is in your package, so it's before you. So if the resolution passes, we will immediately debate and decide again on that resolution as though we have never decided on it before. All right. So everybody's clear, then I'll read the resolution. It's moved by Councillor Gray, second by Councillor Mayette, that whereas the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee recommended that council approve option 1 from RJ Burnside report, which enhances the High and Huron intersection in honor of Southampton and Saugeen First Nation veterans. And whereas on August 11, 2025, council considered the engineering services report recommending that council approve the final design for the Southampton Cenotaph upgrade project. And whereas during the August 11, 2025 council meeting, council discussed concerns that were raised regarding the Southampton Legion not being in support of the design. And whereas the above staff recommendation from August 11, 2025 council meeting was defeated. And whereas Derek Johnson, president of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 155, presented a delegation to council on October 27, 2025, reporting that a motion was passed at the Southampton Legion's branch general meeting on September 3, 2025 to support the recommendation put forward by the Cenotaph Ad Hoc Committee. And whereas President Johnson reported Southampton Legion membership support for memorials to be located on the 2 western curb extensions at the intersection of High and Huron to honor the men and women of our community and the Saugeen First Nation who served in World War I and World War II, and support the Dominion Plywood Factory mosquito bomber and the ladies in uniform commemorative plaques being placed on the curb extensions on the eastern side of this intersection. And whereas the Southampton Legion Branch 155 asked council to direct staff to work with them to create a cenotaph and memorial area that all in the community will appreciate as properly honoring those who served in both of these wars. And whereas Southampton Legion Branch 155 commits to assist with direct financial support as well as support toward necessary fundraising, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores reconsider resolution number 211-2025 from August 11, 2025 with respect to the engineering services report to approve the final design for the Southampton Cenotaph upgrade project. This is a motion to reconsider. Are there any questions or comments with respect to the reconsideration? Councillor Mayette. Yeah. Okay. If there's no questions or comments, I'll ask all in favor of the resolution. That is carried. Now, council will now consider resolution 2025, or pardon me, resolution, what was the resolution number? I just lost it, doesn't matter. 211-2025. So the staff report is there for your consideration. The resolution is that council approve the final design for the Southampton Cenotaph upgrade project. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Questions, comments from members? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. My recollection takes me back to August in the warm weather when we discussed this. And the reason I believe, as I recall, that we turned this down was that there was some dispute as to what the final design should be, and that the Legion, although the Legion doesn't have a veto right to decide what the design should be, they certainly have a vested interest in making sure that of the appropriateness and the inclusivity and all of the important factors that go into the design of this cenotaph and the abutments and the memorial benches and so on and so forth, as described in the recommendation. But I think the purpose of bringing this back around is that we did hear from the Legion that they had a desire to move forward with a design. And I would urge that the recommendation as outlined here should not be that the design that was presented should be the actual, may not be the actual final design. That I would encourage that staff work with the representative of the Legion to come up with a design that most appropriately and unanimously is supported by those important bodies, and once again should be supported by this council. It doesn't have to be exactly as described in the recommendation, because obviously that design had within it some reservation.
Okay, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I just want to appreciate Councillors Grace and Mayette for getting this back before us. That was good. Further to what Councillor Mayette said, in the recommendation, what's described as the final design isn't the pictures that we saw. So this kind of plays along with what has just been said. The Legion from Derek Johnson said that they were supportive of memorial walls. So the recommendation talks about memorial walls honoring veterans from Southampton and Saugeen First Nation. The actual recommendation doesn't have the design of them or the color or anything like that. And then it also includes about restoration of the existing cairn and the cross, landscaping, improvements to the traffic island, and relocation of an existing plaque, and also creating a duplicate of another interpretive plaque to put on curb extensions. So I think what was just said about encouraging interaction, I was going to do the same thing. And back in August, I believe when we were talking about this, it was said by somebody that the path forward would include the manager of engineering, Raul, working with the Legion to come up with something. So I'm very encouraged just to say the same thing that Councillor Mayette said, and hope we move forward because I do think that there is support for the design, which includes elements. It's not the specifics of any element. I think there's a conversation was suggested that should happen, could happen, and will happen should we go forward. Thank you.
So just for clarity then for council, so in the staff report from August the 11th at the bottom in the recommendation, there's the things that we're actually approving, right? So option 1 from the RJ Burnside report, including enhancements to the High and Huron Street intersection, 2 memorial walls to honor veterans from Southampton and the Saugeen First Nation, restoration of the cairn and cross, landscaping improvements of the traffic island, relocation of the mosquito bomber interpretive plaque closer to the cenotaph, and installation of benches and a duplicate women in military interpretive plaque. So that's what we're approving here in this resolution. And so I would suggest, in keeping with what the deputy mayor said, that if council wished, you could also add direction to staff to engage with the Southampton Legion on the final design of those elements that we're approving in this resolution. That's just a suggestion, but open to your thoughts. Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. So, so moved then by the Deputy Mayor that we add that direction to consult. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Stack? Councillor Helpin, did you have a comment?
I did, but I'll wait till after this amendment is passed.
All right. So any further comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Councillor Helpin?
So yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you. So that means that when staff comes up with these designs and everything and with the Legion, they will come to council again. Is that correct?
I'll ask the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess just to be a little blunt, but no, that was not what we would take from this. Like when the report came forward to council, it was approval of the final design. What I'm understanding is that council is directing us to consult with the Legion on the fit and finish of that design, but that the design has been finalized.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing then none, then all in favor of the resolution as amended. That is carried. Okay. So now we're on to bylaws, and only one bylaw there. It is the bylaw 104-2025, authorizing stopping up and closing a portion of Eckford Avenue. The resolution is that bylaw 104-2025 is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 10th day of November 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Stack. Questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
The only question I had, Mr. Mayor, at what point we received this, and I just haven't seen it. But the cost, the revenues generated from that sale, I don't recall what that number was. Is it public knowledge or?
The Director of Development Services.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the sale price agreed upon is $3,900.
Repeat, please.
The sale price agreed upon was $3,900.
$3,900. Is there any Don't get your hopes up. But is there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution? That is carried. Okay, and then we're on to the confirmatory bylaw. Resolution is that bylaw 105-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 10th day of November 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Duhame. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, a resolution, this regular council meeting of November 10, 2025, hereby adjourns at 8:03 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Duhame, seconded by Davinsky. All in favor? Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.
Have a good evening, everyone.